Hello, hello, Scorpio. I'm Poetic Heretic, and this is your August 2020 astrology forecast, where we take a look at the most significant astrological developments of the month and interpret them for your sign. Remember that forecasts like this, as well as all predictive work, will be most accurate for your rising sign. So if you watch just one of these, I recommend that it be the one for your rising sign, but you may also use these for your sun and moon if you so desire. With that said, prepare yourselves, dear Scorpio, sun, rising, and moon, for this is your August 2020 forecast. Enjoy. The month begins with a series of aspects for Mercury forming what is likely one overall event. On screen, I have the chart for Mercury opposite Pluto on August 1st, since it is about the midpoint of the event. However, this means that in order to understand the beginning of August, we must also examine the end of July. The exact series of Mercury aspects in effect here are as follows: Mercury opposite Jupiter on July 30th at 10:17 a.m. Eastern Time, Mercury trine Neptune on July 30th at 2:44 p.m., Mercury opposite Pluto on August 1st at 6:52 a.m., and Mercury opposite Saturn on August 3rd at 5 p.m. What is so interesting about this event is that as Mercury moves through Cancer and makes these aspects, it is actually making virtually the same aspects that the Sun already made a couple weeks earlier throughout mid-July. This means that in theory, whatever happens in late July and early August will be a repeat of what happened around the middle of July, only now with a Mercury flavor of communication, mental activity, problem solving, short distance travel, and or commerce being emphasized, among other things. Look back in your own life at what happened in mid-July and use that to help you understand what happens at the beginning of August. As you can also see from the chart on screen, Venus will sweep through Cancer and make these same aspects yet again at the end of August, reflecting another repetition of events that we will examine in more detail towards the end of this forecast. For you, Scorpio, this Mercury event in late July and early August involves primarily someone or something challenging you in the area of your beliefs, spirituality, education, or what is foreign to you, and or your communication, travel, or what is familiar to you, as well as a possible breakthrough in the area of your creative self-expression. The challenge may have to do with what you communicate or something that is communicated to you. It could be a challenge to your worldview or for you to grow in some way with the opposition to Jupiter, that then facilitates deep inner transformation with the opposition to Pluto, that then facilitates taking on a new responsibility, facing a difficult reality, or accepting limitation with the opposition to Saturn. However, in the midst of all this, as Mercury trines Neptune in Pisces, we also have a breakthrough involving the mind and the imagination. Mercury trine Neptune puts the intangible, non-physical realities of Neptune into terms the mind, Mercury, can understand. It is a penetrating mental insight into the haunting, dreamy mists of Neptune. Remember that this is likely connected to the Mercury oppositions we just went over. Furthermore, the fact that the Sun squares Uranus on August 2nd and the Moon trines Uranus just a day before that on August 1st indicates the sudden, unexpected, revelatory nature of what manifests around this time. This overall event at the end of July and early August will have lasting changes in your partner's money, business, or issues of life and death, your friends or social group, your creative self-expression, and or your communication, short distance travel, and what is familiar to you. Next, on August 3rd at 11:58 a.m., we have the full moon in Aquarius in your 4th house. What makes this full moon especially powerful is that it is almost perfectly square to Uranus, infusing it with radical, shocking energy. The full moon is where things come to a head, and this month that is in the sign of Aquarius. I believe what is largely being emphasized for everyone on the day of this full moon is the paradox of being connected while separate, as well as the dichotomy between the detached, intellectual, idealized love for everyone represented by the moon in Aquarius and the heartfelt, individual, personal love represented by the sun in Leo. Expect things to come to a head in the area of your home, family, and living situation. With the square to Uranus, expect stressful, unexpected events having to do with your major relationships, that push you into new areas of activity and possibly end up affecting your home, family, and living situation. The next event we have to go over is quite monumental with far-reaching effects, so prepare yourself. It is none other than Mars making a series of aspects throughout the entire month of August. But these aspects do not just conclude once August is over. Instead, due to the upcoming Mars retrograde, they will repeat in months to come, making the information we are about to go over not just a big part of the energy of August, but also that of the entire next 6 months, finally concluding around the end of January 2021. In other words, this Mars event we are about to examine is the beginning of an even longer 6-month cycle. Pluto again takes center stage on screen, as the Mars square to it represents the midpoint of these Mars squares. Specifically, they are Mars square Jupiter on August 4th at 9:06 a.m., Mars square Pluto on August 13th at 3:14 a.m., and Mars square Saturn on August 24th at 2:19 p.m. While there will likely be elevated activity on and around those specific dates, remember that this is for most one overall event that is happening perhaps somewhat in the background throughout the entire month of August, but that will also dynamically surface at specific times throughout the month. One such time, I believe, is August 16th through the 18th, when the powerful trines from the Sun, Moon, and Mercury to Mars reach exactitude. To help you understand more deeply the implications of these developments, let us first talk a little about Mars' extended stay in Aries. Mars will spend nearly half a year in Aries, your 6th house of day-to-day activities. This means that throughout this entire time, you will be digging into the area of your work, health, schedule, employees, pets, duty, obligation, service, and anything else related to your day-to-day activities in a way that does not normally happen. This area of your life is now undergoing and will continue to undergo very important changes and renovations in the months to come. If you were born during the nighttime, Mars will likely play a more positive or constructive role, and these changes will come easier for you. If you were born during the daytime, Mars will likely play a more challenging or destructive role, and these changes will be more difficult. And something here that I can add right now that I did not include in my official written report, but that I am aware of for you individually, Scorpio, is that with Mars spending all of this time in your 6th house, Mars is said, especially in ancient astrology or particularly there, to have its joy in the 6th house. So whether you were born during the daytime or the nighttime, you might have a little bit easier of a time than other signs with Mars extended stay in Aries. So that's some good news for you. However, that doesn't completely negate the expression of sect. In other words, if you were born during the daytime, yes, it still will likely be a bit more challenging. But if you're born during the nighttime, or if you were born during the nighttime, it should be easier. But if you were born during the daytime and it's more challenging, that is maybe at least somewhat mitigated by the fact that Mars has its joy in the 6th house. So there's that. As for the series of squares, a stressful event takes place in the area of your work, health, schedule, and day-to-day activities, and or your communication, short-distance travel, and what is familiar to you. It involves focused action or what motivates you, and it pushes you into new areas of activity. With Mars square Jupiter, your worldview may be pushed to expand, or you will be pushed to expand in another way. This expansion becomes highly transformative on a deep emotional or psychological level as Mars squares Pluto. Finally, a difficult reality, obstacle, or limitation must be faced as Mars squares Saturn. This then ends up most likely affecting your work, health, schedule, and day-to-day activities, you personally, and your communication, short-distance travel, and what is familiar to you. Remember, this is on one level an ongoing event throughout the month of August, and on another level, the beginning of an ongoing event lasting from August through January of next year. Next, we have the new moon in Leo on August 18th at 10:41 p.m. This new moon is very interesting. Not only is it conjunct Mercury, adding an element of talkativeness, movement, and mental focus to the overall energy, But it is also in a powerful trine with Mars in Aries, as Mars is squaring Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in Capricorn, as we just went over. This is, as mentioned, I believe, highly indicative of a significant development in the more long-lasting event represented by the Mars squares. To help uncover the nature of that significant development, let us look more closely at this new moon. The new moon marks the beginning of a new month-long cycle, and this one takes place in your 10th house. So you can expect new beginnings in the area of your career, public image, social status, and or the role society has assigned to you. Again, there will be a fusion of this energy with that of communication, movement, and mental focus with a conjunction with Mercury that will end up affecting your partner's money, business, or issues of life and death, and or your friends or social group. The trine to Mars tells us that there will be a breakthrough involving focused action, motivation, and willpower in the area of your work, health, schedule, and day-to-day activities that ends up affecting not only those day-to-day activities, but also you personally. The final event in August we will be looking at is a series of aspects that Venus makes at the very end of the month. The astute among you will have already noticed or recalled from earlier that Venus is making the same aspects that Mercury made at the beginning of the month and that the Sun made in mid-July. Again, this tells us already before we even begin looking at any more details that this will likely represent another phase of what we saw in early August and mid-July, only this time with more of a Venus flavor of love, beauty, pleasure, creativity, money, art, and or relating to others, among other things. The exact aspects Venus makes are as follows. Venus opposite Jupiter on August 25th at 6:26 p.m., Venus trine Neptune on August 27th at 5:12 p.m., Venus opposite Pluto on August 30th at 9:30 a.m., and Venus opposite Saturn on September 2nd at 8:17 a.m. I again have the chart for Venus opposite Pluto on screen since it is the closest to the midpoint of when the aspects are exact. As you can see, to understand this event properly, we must take a bit of a look into early September when Venus opposes Saturn as well. And needless to say, this series of Venus aspects is, like other events we have already been over this month, representative of one overall event. For you, Scorpio, an event taking place in either the area of your beliefs, spirituality, education, or what is foreign to you, and or your communication, travel, or what is familiar to you, involving a creative or spiritual breakthrough that may be positive or negative, as well as someone or something challenging you and how you relate to others and or your worldview, leads to a deep transformation and then the taking on of a new responsibility and or facing of a difficult reality that then ends up affecting your major relationships, how you spend time alone or your enemies, your creative self-expression, and or your communication, short distance travel, or what is familiar to you. Again, this event takes place not only at the end of August, but also likely reaches into the very beginning of September. The breakthrough represented by Venus trine Neptune may have to do with certain frustrations from May through July involving love, money, and or indulgence or pleasure, as well as fantasy or spirituality, since Venus was caught in a stressful square to Neptune that entire time. In other words, I suspect that for many of us, that which was frustrating or even disappointing and of a Venusian and Neptunian nature from May through July is now undergoing a breakthrough for better or worse at the end of August. Furthermore, at the same time that Venus is making her series of aspects, Mercury is making its own series of aspects to the same planets, except Mercury is opposing Neptune and trining Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. To fully delineate these would be to risk getting lost in the details, so suffice to say that Mercury opposite Neptune is warning us that there is still the risk of confusion in the midst of this event at the end of August, and the trines to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn further highlight the strong propensity for breakthroughs that are also of a mental and or communicative nature. As if that was not enough, the Sun is also applying to a trine to revolutionary Uranus at this time, providing us with yet another indicator of breakthroughs that may be sudden, shocking, or revelatory. What does all this mean in simple terms? It means that the month of August is going to be a hell of a month, and there will be much heightened activity, especially towards the end of the month. It is a month where we have quite the study of repeating cycles. This is the nature of human life, and therefore so much of predictive astrology is the study of cycles. It is a month where we are challenged again and again, and yet also experience breakthroughs again and again. It is also the month that powerfully introduces us to the flavor of the next 6 months with the Mars squares to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, as Mars prepares to turn retrograde. We will all experience these energies in our own unique ways. And yet one thing is certain. These are wild times in which we now live, and never again will we return to things being quite the same as they were before. The month of August is a huge piece in the unraveling story of the thunderous upheaval that is the year 2020, and we each have both the obligation and the glory as physically incarnate beings of not only witnessing these wondrous developments, but also the obligation and the glory of each being a unique and important part of them. So there you have it, Scorpio. That is your August forecast. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe, as I am always streaming and uploading new astrology and tarot related content to this channel. I want to wish you a magnificent month of August indeed, and I hope you have a great day or night wherever you are out there. Bye for now.